It almost seemed to make her more angry, actually. I stopped trying to talk to her after that. Then one night, as Julia sat on the step inside my boat, I made a mistake. When I stood up from bed and took a step closer, I accidentally shut off the lamp that I left on every night. In an instant, all light was gone from the room, and in that same moment, I heard her scream. It took me a few moments to finally locate the switch again in the blackness, but when I did, the girl was gone. Pausing for a moment, I grabbed a beer from the fridge and sat down at my kitchen table. It made sense. From that night forward, I would make sure all the lights were off when I went to bed. And God's honest truth, Julia never came back inside. That night, I slept better than I had in years. The next day, I woke up smiling and I decided to call in sick to med school. I deserved it after all. And I felt like fishing. Maybe I'd even find a good spot. In fact, I knew the perfect spot. That morning, I motored out of the marina and into the wind. I cast both anchors, one in the front and one in the back. Pulling out my fishing rod and getting comfortable, I stared down into the water below. Julia Gray. I looked down farther into the deep blue water around me, and I swore for a moment that I saw the exact spot where I had dumped her body 4 years earlier. Yeah, this was the spot. Julia Gray. It made sense that she would be afraid of the darkness. Darkness was all she would ever see again. Part 2. I was living in New York and had just begun my first year of residency when my life changed forever. Working as a surgical resident was extremely demanding. We were on call between 60 and 80 hours a week. There was no time for a social life or any kind of life for that matter outside of work. Then one sunny Tuesday afternoon, I was eating lunch in the hospital atrium when Julia asked me if she could join me. Julia was one of those girls you don't say no to. She was smart, funny, and drop-dead gorgeous. She always had an air of flirtatious mischief about her. Julia worked as a nurse's aide, mainly in the children's cancer ward. She had this great ability to get the kids laughing. Julia joined me for lunch and we ended up talking for 2 hours, at the end of which I asked her on a date. Perhaps, she said, smiling. Then she handed me her number. I called the next day and we made our plans. It was 6 days until I had a free night, the longest 6 days of my life, and I needed to do a preoperative check on one of the patients in the children's cancer ward. Hoping to run across Julia, I surveyed the room before walking over to my patient, Clara. Clara was a very serious 8-year-old. I asked her a list of questions, then we just talked for a while. Before leaving, I asked if she was nervous about the surgery. She said no, then paused and looked me straight in the eyes. You like her, don't you? Before I could answer, she continued. She's not nice. She pretends to be nice, but she's not. Just then, I heard the door swing open and I saw Julia stride in smiling and holding a giant cluster of balloons. She tied one to each bed while she continued laughing and talking. Clara watched silently.